Thank you, Avani, Tony, Bridge, TiEcom, and Triple ID, who's probably seen me so many times that they would, I don't know why they don't get bored. Riaz and Calicut. Clearly you really do me more honor than I deserve. Although it's been 5 decades, my practice, I was looking at this little, which I was asked to carry, 3 titles: designer, scenographer, and curator. So I thought I could talk about each of these 3 categories and tell you how it cracks up for me. I never heard the word scenographer. But before I do this, I'm going to get back to the last slide. Sorry. My title is called The Musk Deer. I find that over the last decade or so, either I was repeating myself or there was the same things that had to be said again and again. But I don't change the title now. At least for the last year, it's been Musk Deer 1, 2, 3, 4, although different. But the idea of what the Musk Deer will come to you at the end of the title and why I call it that. It's been 5 decades since my design-led engagement to try and better the quality of life. My journey as a scenographer got charted only 20 years ago. I'd never heard the word scenography till one was coerced into registering it as a title of my practice, Rajeev Sethi Scenographers Private Limited. The Basic Needs Pavilion that I created at the Expo 2000 at Hanover required that I register a company of professional scenographers. And the income tax department thought I was exporting stenographers. So the tax relief due to me as a designer was challenged. I had to take the case all the way to Supreme Court with the fabulous advocate Karuna Nandi before we could prove the difference in the spelling, scenography and stenography. So, scenography. At the outset, what I was showing you was parts of my pavilion at the Expo 2000, which started me on this journey of scenography. It is a seamless synthesis of space, text, research, art and audience, contributing to an original creation. It emphasizes unity in all elements of staging a story, a sort of dramaturgy of architecture and theater, both in time, space, and enhanced by context. This whole scenography phenomena informs a very emerging new profession with wide-ranged capabilities. It's museums, exhibitions, theatrical shows, installations, events, becoming metaphorical stages for curating layered narratives, and both you could use contemporary or traditional media. Scenographers are open to all aesthetic possibilities, widening their perspective, especially for people intervention, public intervention in public domain. So, before the word came to my life, I was a curator, which also doesn't have a good enough description because a sutradhar maybe, but curator again has problems. And there were exhibitions like the Festivals of India that started in 1980 went on, and it did have a very complex arrangement where most of my exhibitions were live. 100 people would travel with it, and it was never the same any one day. Here you see the great Ganga Devi and Jivya Soma, both great masters who are no longer there, as a part of what was open to public every day. Then came another exhibition called The Golden Eye, which was more to do with bringing contemporary architects to come and work with me in India. So Mario Bellini worked on this bench that we did in a place near Agra, and Ettore Sotsas devised his things on Memphis. There was Fry Otto, who came and did wonderful tents with me, with Teji Ben, and we did many versions of it. And then came the Silk Route, which was in Washington, D.C., looking at the whole more than subcontinent, the entire, from Nara to Delft, in fact, all the way to Italy. But it was completely made in India and had a presence on the National Mall at a time when America was just waking up to 9/11 and hated all these words that sounded like Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Pakistan. And I had 500 people that I chose from all over these countries to people the National Mall a few months later. There was the Universal Forum in Barcelona, which I was the chief scenographer for, where there were trees of life. I actually wasn't going to show this, but some people came up to me yesterday saying that I thought I did something in Trivandrum about 2 years ago, and I assumed if it was triple ID, it would be all the same people. But the children came and said, no, we've not seen that, except for Vinod, my friend, who was there, and he said that it may not be a bad idea to insert a few things that were, this is a bus stop that I did with Manjeet Baba in Bombay. And scenography, of course, takes a different role because, you could have very performative. I did these big puppets on the Red Fort ramparts, and the entire stage was in the entire Red Fort lawn. And although, as I said, the word had become used, but again in India, we couldn't use it. We were doing an event. An exhibition, again, theatre became a very strong part of my design exercise. This was a play that I directed and created called India, Mother, Daughter, Father, Son with Ariane Mushkin in Paris. And another play called The Hidden River in the ill-fated Mukesh Mills in Bombay, where we were talking about looking below the gender stereotypes of male and female, trying to seek what this hidden river is all about. I love doing weddings. We only have godchildren. So 2 godchildren that made an environment of ephemeral architecture. The last one was with flowers. This is with bamboos and with the tent skills. Very keen that scenography takes a very particular role in terms of context and message. And in a hotel in Chennai, I found there were huge beehives. So I convinced the owners to let me make about 30 beehives and have a big show next to it where traditional knowledge keepers could meet with scientists from like M.S. Swaminathan, Pushpa Bhargav, with musicians like Rahman and dancers like Sarukai and Valli and Sonal Mansingh. And anyway, I don't think that's here. So, and then again, something on migration. And in a house, in the private residential spaces, there was a time to explore a lot of what contemporary arts were about. This is the bull is by my friend Sudarshan Shetty. The rest of the environment I did in a certain way. Bhupen and Nalini and Vivan Sundaram made the large murals in the back. And this was something else in another residence in Ahmedabad, using craftspeople. And finally, of course, the Bombay airport, which I'm not going to show. Some of you have been, and it's there. It can be seen at any point. So, indeed, we talked about scenography, but what of design? Is it possible to get a glass of water? The word design is also full of ambiguity. It has no easy translation. We are a very Shabd Pradhan Desh word. But our 400 odd languages and many more are fast disappearing dialects can't find one to cover the reach of the word design. And so, sorry, yes. Ashoka Ahuja's work, I'm using it to illustrate the idea of Shilpa and Kala as my guru or ustad. The world has always inspired an image, the word itself. And that word had a great meaning for me in terms of design. But then the idea of design itself first appeared in street installations or in kinetic image, remaining liminal, ephemeral, anonymous, transformative, and often very witty and seamless and sensuous. This is I think I photographed this 30 years ago, close by, in a field of rice, where the farmers had made a scarecrow of what he thought the birds would look at, how they would look at people working in the field. It was effective. An egg merchant's house, I think this was in Goa. A stone person who sold his stone in a way that it was frugal merchandise. He had a little bit, but he had a sense of design, as we do indeed when we dress up our food, when we dress up our... These were about all 30 years old slides, and I think it was fun to set off something in a design conference talking about this part of the anonymous, making things that are profane into sacred, and So from Nirakar, we seek Akar, and vice versa. Just as tears to the eyes, rain to clouds, fragrance to flowers. These two images are from the internet. How do Shilpkars like me enter a country which is not what it seems to be? Where no body or breath can reach, where learning is more intangible than tangible. I photographed this in Orissa. Design gives a face to society, but if society loses its face, where will design go? I was always a jack of all, wanting to dance, sing, paint, cook with all my senses. In fact, the Vishnu Dharmottara Puran states very clearly, if you want to be an architect, you have to be a dancer. If you want to be a dancer, you have to be a sculptor. Sculptor needs to know music. Music requires poetry, mathematics. So, in a sense, what Charles Eames kept saying, everything connects. The only means to measure creativity is with emotional intelligence, cutting across all boundaries between art and craft, high, low, margi, deshi, east, west, minimalist, postmodernist, and becoming seamless Here you see Chandrakala Devi work with my friend Manjeet Baba and what came out of it. So no matrix. So what I was trying to do was to show you a few, the projects are, they're hundreds, and it's too garrulous. I hear myself, repeat myself too much, and it's okay. And I don't enjoy it. So what I was going to do was show you some of my newest things that have excited me and that are still there in my space. What I'm showing you is my sculpture on Gondwana, on the continental drift, which have always been dreaming to do with the collaboration of Australian Aboriginals and Konde tribals. I made this tectonic shift. Gondwana is a word that is used both in Australia, in Africa, and India, when we were part of the same continent, and as we drifted apart, for some reason, certain similarities retain. This is before memory was invented. This is long before human beings came into being. So it was very challenging for me to create something that could be a tectonic shift, and on top of that, give a skin which could be manifested by the earliest indigenous people of Australia and India. So that is what has just finished last week, in fact, hardly 5 days ago. And you've seen it in a very disconnected way, which is a bit like the tectonic shift that took place millions of years back before we came into being. It's a different rhythm. Today, I will shrink the flap, I think. Not show you 100 projects I've done, but share a few examples. This is the Adani project and the larger concept of Gondwana. The scenography is about being excited by ideas that are much larger than just a single object or an image or even an idea. So the Gondwana had been working on my mind for a long time, where the continental drift made huge continents that then dictated. So in my sculpture, I've tried to show that tectonic shift. But you can enter it, and you can go through different surfaces. And once this was ready, I went to Australia and found, this was the earlier models, the sketch that didn't work, and of course, the actual going to moving, it's moving actually. Well, you missed Australia, it does. Met with these wonderful people with a sense of looking from way, way behind their head and doing things that have nothing to do with painting, but and so getting them to meet the Konde artists who, because of commercial pressures, are starting to make paintings, to understand, why do we paint? What is the urge to paint? What is dream time all about? Was an experience. It stopped. So, it's going to get much more complex. Much more complex. Every word I've linked with pictures. It's never going to work in this present setup. I don't think we should go ahead with this. Let's just go completely extempore. This is the easier part. So, no, we keep going back and forth. It's not fair to people.
So the thing is that there's a video happening, right?
It's a video happening, yes. It happened before. And there are 6 more videos about 7 more videos that will happen. नहीं बेटा अब इसके बाद वीडियो देखो ना अच्छा आप 2 मिनट इधर रुको that's Paju Singh, and that was Patrick and Larry from Australia with me. And then again, scenography dictated, and this is for the German Expo, it dictated that we look at, there is no distinction with making, doing, and being. So performance became so much a part of our scenography that there was a huge area in my exhibition that I dedicated to a theater which was done with the bread and puppet theater. And I can show you a little part of it, of how complex it became, if it works. No? Video? Yes? See? And there's a sound to this too. Believe me, this may seem very careless, but I have done similar nature, done many presentations where I have not had such a competition with technology, but I think what we should do is, it's too long, we will just, I work a lot with very complex theatrical props, but let's go on. I think we'll just go on further. Scenography also deals with issues like political comments. I went to China. In the Basic Needs Pavilion, one of the basic things to survive is freedom. So I found 8 Chinese artists that I could take to Tibet to work there with what they felt. Song Dong, for example, who you see in the next picture, had gone to where do I show this picture? This is part of that, my exhibition. But Song Dong earlier had gone to Lhasa village, where he took blocks of, like Tibetan blocks of wood, and he inked them and printed it on the Lhasa River. And he would continue to do that. Ink, print, ink, print. What was he saying? You can burn all their blocks. You can, choose to line them as bridges or as wood, firewood. But how do you stop the spirit from saying what it has to? Likewise, they did the same thing in the exhibition earlier. No, gone. Never mind. This is another thing at the Grand Hyatt where I talk about mythology. I think unless we live seamlessly in many centuries rolled into one, we are depriving ourselves from the real joy of working in this country. So I've loved Elephanta. All of you haven't been there, make it a point. No exercise in understanding India is complete without actually standing in front of the great Sadashiv. And that Sadashiv had to be interpreted in a contemporary way. So I chose to deconstruct it as a puzzle. On one side was, can I go to the next? One side was the male aspect, staring into the eye of a serpent, and on the other side there was a Uma looking at a lotus. And between this is the quintessential self. To redefine it, I seek it like a puzzle, where in the beginning, Sadashiv was here, my Guruvayur team, are they here? There was my real heroes. And Suresh was working on this one. But this is after you started us on the journey at the spice route. I'm not showing all those. There are many things, but I owe you so much because Kerala opened up a whole world that I was poor for, that I didn't know. So here they painted. This is Jugalbandi. So whose creation is this? I deconstruct a design, I deconstruct an idea, make a puzzle out of it, but I can't do it all. I'm not the one who can make the iron. Only great artists who can listen in, then we work together as a team to create something which will magnify the wonderful awe of something that was still done in the 5th century. So the idea of Sadashiv came alive in a very meaningful way for all of us while we were doing. This again was mythology. Coimbatore, the Padmanabham, I wanted to have this majesty lying on the serpent. But the serpent had to be a bench because I had to have people sitting here. So that stone bench is about 17 feet high. This was also about 25 years ago. And it was held up by Mount Meru, which was in chrome. And behind it, I found this whole kavach, which I devised as a mural to put in on Padmanabham. The flag of Lakshmi, again 3.5 ton of steel, which I had to fold in a manner that could show two different faces at the same time. These are all 25 years ago sculptures, sorry. Now, at the airport, which I'm not showing you, this is a 3-mile long wall, but the only thing that I'm choosing to show you is this one mural that was done by the village craftsmen of Mulela. There were many, otherwise I would have named them all. And the idea was, again, seamless, of people in the village making something as contemporary as an aeroplane. And below that were these painters, miniature painters, who made pictures of themselves in ties and all contemporary aspirations, but done in a miniature style. There is, of course, a film here. These are cones who've done animation films. It doesn't work. Okay, and there's Varli tribals who work on things that move. There was a small 2 minutes film here, but doesn't matter, let's go further. Let's go further. Doesn't matter, let's go further. Geo is what we're currently doing. Its inauguration comes on the 2nd of December. One of the reasons why Tony G, I was finding it very difficult to come, because this was an enormous project that after 10 years we were putting into the public domain. This handwriting is Mahatma Gandhi's, and its byline is "Believe, Buy, Belong," and it's working in this one, working in 6 states in the remotest districts where, as you are well aware, there is a deep militancy problem. There are Naxals, and there is a paradox between poverty and culture. And we're also working in Nepal, again, where a lot of the problems stem, in 8 of the poorer districts, and in 9 different fields, which I call the Navaratna, connecting the creative and cultural industry as a whole. So there's geomotion, there's geolife, geohabitat, geopedagogy, geolearning, geofood, looking at creativity in all its connections and seeing how 1 + 1 can be 11 and not 2 + 2 doesn't have to be 3. We are really empowering groups of artisans who form themselves into clusters, and now there are 22 around the country, and it creates, as I saw, creative capital, economic capital, social cultural capital, techno capital, ecological capital. Crafts are can be the most carbon friendly, and there is political capital. Ayush, I disagree about this being very marginal. Probably it's larger than agriculture. If you look at the skill sector in this country, that's 200 million. And if you marginalize the skill, that's a political harakiri. Because if you do not understand what the skills can do for this country, you will have 12 million unemployed every year, which will crowd your streets with nothing to do and will not let you govern. So it's a deeply political question. And the people who can actually invest in this and give you the political fortunes that you need, then you better start getting your priorities right. Because this goes much further than any agriculture can also do. And don't forget, with robotics, that's changing. Even agriculture is changing. But where you create an edge which comes out of your own work, you cannot change. Because that's creating content, which only you can do. And even machines have problems. So you have to stay a step ahead, like I'll show you. What do I do? This, I don't want to press something wrong. This one, okay. So, for example, women make ropes in Pulbani, in these areas, where in Odisha, and they sell them at 20 rupees a kilo. So a day they earn 20 rupees. Today they're making new lights. and they're earning 350 rupees a day. Pankaj Saroj, a close colleague of mine who's been working with me in Geo, has sketched and worked these furniture. There is incense burners connecting mandala potters with coned artists. There are coned artists. Coned artists are now making games for the electronic media. We are doing something on pollinator, on what you saw on the bee story, but how it can be an engaging game. But I'm interested in the game because of the merchandise. I'm not going to get it made in Taiwan. I'm going to make it handmade with people. So these are some of the toys that have come out at the forward linkage of the idea. I'm pressing this, but it's not going further. Okay, so please remember, putting a dhoti on the Spider-Man is not going to create content. It's going to get Warner Brothers more eyeballs and more money. You've got to create your own animation. And what are these animations going to be? We have many, but I don't think it'll be possible to show you. Now these are again paper lights that cones have made. Leather puppeteers, Tola Bomalatta, have created different, there's only so much space for leather puppetry. We have tried to introduce it in schools as part of pedagogy. But even so, villages and villages of leather craftsmen who also are performers can use their craft but can't use their performance because television has invaded that space in a way that little else can. Geo Foods, Kotpar is weaving, asymmetrical weaving, which was here a homage to Nasreen Mohammadi. It's being done in a prison in Kotpar, in Koraput area, in the whole Koraput. This is Baswan Biga, a place that had lost all its weavers. There wasn't a single person. Till about 15 years ago, I had to go and find them. They were driving rickshaws in Patna, but have been now, we are about 36 in Baswan Biga, and they are the ones who've done these new interpretations. Bagh, where block printing was phenomenal at one point, but now, like the caves, nobody knows about Bagh. Many, about 2,000 people. Again, this year's theme, we took on my friend Nasreen Mohammadi's sensibilities and worked with the craftsmen to create things. In Pochampalli, we did a whole lot of asymmetrical ikats. Wallpaper. Kalamkari and Bandhani, the permutation and combination that's possible in this country it cannot be replicated anywhere else in the world. And please believe me, the craftsmen are longing to experiment. They, as any contemporary artist, want to be able to explore new boundaries, explore new ways of saying things. This is Sikhi, this is all embroideries, but this is an important story because a lot of young women came to me to say they want to go through college, but they don't have money to pay the fee. So we created what we call the college fee collection. And these are all embroideries. But we told them that embroideries are now being machine made. So you have to stay one step ahead of the machine. So how do you thread the emotional retina? How do you go ahead of the artificial intelligence? How do you confuse the machine? I'm sure the machines will get there too. Very soon they'll be able to do everything asymmetrically for very small amounts and for small pieces. But that's the challenge. At that time we'll have to come up finding new answers. We are not against machines. We are not Luddites. They will come. They'll challenge. And then again, the human spirit has to triumph. And that's the story of what we're trying to do with. So here, my enduring concern for launching the concept of indigenous identity through local initiatives meant repositioning traditional skills. We worked with craftspeople to create products for urban youth, which we call Jani, to compete with this huge, massive invasion of rural India, where the guy holding those pots ahead is going to be very slowly marginalized, to creating things for rural markets, jharus, fans, rural refrigerators, things that are sold in the heart. I don't know why this has come, but I'm going back to the college fee collection. So what do I do? Press this? No, but it's wrong. Anyway, so you're all welcome. On the 2nd to the 5th, Bapu's 150th anniversary, we are doing a big thing at the foundation in Delhi called TiE Taaleem. And the office has 6 floors, one called Numaish, then there is Ilm. I can't go through the lot right now, but when you come, you will see it. This is what the new office looks like. I had to shift from where I was because the landlord wanted to build a high skyscraper. So after 22 years of being there, we just shifted here and we've got it ready for sharing. My son, who was very bravely trying to save me, has a parallel interest. And in his village in Jharkhand, he has started a center where all the tribal communities who have a great amount to share, if somebody is listening or looking. But it's called the Mandar Mahua Mela. Mandar is the big drum that you see, and Mahua is a drink which is not just alcoholic, but can do many things. So, one senses a lot of money spent on a frantic search for Indian identity. Now I'll try and remember. My friends Thakural would not oppose my using that picture because they also make fun of the Baroque Punjab. Setting up tourist villages, forging quick fix Indian experiences for foreigners means quick money and opportunism. Much pastiche and kitsch is endangered as genuine patrimony was belittled. This is Kerala. Lakshmi. Yards of nylon turbans and ubiquitous poplin skirts invade. So when in doubt, put a pot. That's what interior design has come to mean. And of course, fake fiberglass arches and nostalgia, churning out cardboard cutouts for derivative ambience. Now, this, voila, as an exotic experience, is counterpoint. I came and met a wonderful man, the same man time has met Buckminster Fuller, who taught me how not to be a Luddite. A person like Hassan Fatih came and worked for about a week with me in Delhi, and he wrote this poem for me, which is now, I think, published, but I urge you to read it. Or if you can't, can you read it clearly? So culture that is poured on men from up above entangles them like damp sugar. So they become like sugar dolls. And when some life-giving shower wets them through, they disappear and melt into a sticky mess. It's an old typewriter. So the art sector has an urgent need to engage with anthropologists, cultural activists, social scientists, ecologists, scientists, as well as traditional knowledge keepers. For a better part of my life, I've worked for the vulnerable skilled. They're poor on economic indices, but hugely rich in heritage. This is the paradox I was talking about. Much more difficult and volatile if turned into a spectacle. These skilled tribal remain tentative and less likely to participate in anything that doesn't seem real. Now let me share with you one of my many failures, perhaps as an appeal to all of you, my friends, on how to resist pressure. May I take you to the Katputli colony at Shadipur Depot in New Delhi. This program still hurts me. It hurts my heart. But it's also about survival. It is about India's art heritage in the dust heap of a not-so-smart city. I begin with a true story. Emergency had been declared more than 4 decades ago. All too silently, bulldozers had razed the mud homes at Katputli colony, traditional artists squatting on public land in Shadipur Depot, in the heart of India's capital city. In America, they went, faced big magazines, but this is where they actually live. Removing the poor was easier than removing poverty. So we set up the first cooperative, the Bhule Bisre Kalakar Sehkari Samiti was set up. It took me about 2-3 years because the Department of Cooperatives couldn't understand how you could measure performing arts and all the other crafts, and how could you draw a common meter to be able to make a cooperative. In fact, if you find me, I'm standing there very much thinner somewhere here in setting up this. And of course, the refrain was that how can you set up a cooperative of so many things? It was India's first cooperative of the forgotten and scattered artists. And it was taken note of internationally. It had, from New York Times, front page to many. And we set up our workshop where the greats of the world could come. There was Merce Cunningham, John Cage, Peter Brook, Aryan Mushkin, Joan Littlewood. All this, of course, has been demolished. Kamala Devi Chattopadhyay, Pupul Jayakar, and Ela Bhatt were guiding me to establish a unique arts habitat for the skilled poor. As street entertainers, the Bastiwalas were vulnerable but tenacious. Their resilient pilgrims of joy included puppeteers, acrobats, jugglers, magicians, balladeers, animal trainers, and craftspeople. The tourists enjoyed their live neighborhood and called it Anandgram, the village of eternal bliss, in this midst of a bludgeoning city. 35 years ago, look at this barefoot architecture. Residents making their dream houses in every courtyard. So, basti basna khel nahi hai, baste baste basti hai. A community settlement is not mere play. While settling and settling, it settles. There was a beautiful film on these people speaking about what they want from their tomorrow. Go on.
हम लोग पहले घुमंतु लोग थे, तो जब हम यहाँ शुरू में आए थे तो यहाँ कुछ नहीं था, तो हम सारे लोग यहाँ रहने लगे।
सबसे पहली बात तो हमें हमारे नाम का ही बता दीजिए।
It's called From Tomorrow We Disappear.
या करीबन वही बता दीजिए।
वालों को शिफ्ट कराकर यहाँ जल्दी ही काम शुरू करवाया जाए।
हमको मोहरा बनाया जा रहा है, इसमें हमारे ही पैसे लिए जा रहे हैं, हमारी जमीन ली जा रही है, इसमें मॉल बनाया जा रहा है।
ये दरियाव है, दरियाव को रोकना, जिनको रोकना प्रॉब्लम होता है।
Part of a play that I did in Agra. Where tourism can go. This is part of the play. Bhartari, in his evocative verse written in 5th century AD, classified a person devoid of literature, music, and art as equivalent to an animal. It is said even the cows now left on streets to eat plastic give more milk to the sound of music. Please hear the song of the folk cooperatives, which I can't. Carry on. Cut. That's our answer. No, can't. Go on. Okay, so now friends, today we have gathered here to find a new story. We know love for diversity, travel, and decentralized livelihoods are design passports to the future. So I'm going to talk to you about my current passion, and I'm sure for whatever remains in my life, my future, the little path that remains. I call it Sone Pe Sohaga, and I was speaking to some people in power that they want to be able to convert the entire highway. They were impressed by the Bombay airport, and they liked the fact that there was 3 miles of art. Could I do something on a whole highway? So really the first one we're talking about, and I haven't shown this to anybody, including those, because it's not ready. But I wanted to share it with you to ignite the creative community's mind to say, this is what we need to look at to go further. This corridor passes through a rich repository of clusters, which could almost find a place to breathe on the road. If you don't just see it as a destination from Bombay to Nagpur, and you saw it as sarais, which is how the early Silk Route used to be. There were sarais all along the way. The people, local people could come and share their work. Go further. And so there are at least 30 tunnels. These are not my work. These are things we hope. There are bridges. There are overbridges. There are connecting museums and sites. All this will form a part of where I think art has to go. It has to link with infrastructure. It's art and engineering, art and architecture. It's not going to be craft in the way that we go to boutiques and buy. Actually, it will be that too. And I hope that grows. I hope that becomes more prosperous. But if you're looking for a paradigm shift, if you're looking at the large base of the pyramid, then your thinking has to change completely. It has to go to another direction where they become part of something which they are owners of. And that is going to be another debate. Then the last part I'm going to show you, which is important for me. Can you get back that? Something that has really involved me over the last 15 years, but now for the few remaining years, I hope it stays with me. It's called Alsatian Journey. Like slow food, slow fashion, I also hope slow comfort on an efficient highway will lead to slower world. Leisurely travel and freedom beyond frontiers. In Europe, you go by road. You don't go by air and by the frontiers. I've always dreamt of Sesia with a new regional passport. My foundation, the Asian Heritage Foundation, with our neighbors is living to premiere a multi-dimensional festival for Sesia, maybe in 2020, somewhere in the world or here, if the visa regimes in our region get relaxed, and if our powers that be become friendly with the neighborhood of South Asia. Suddenly they found the Pakistan and Afghanistan was excess baggage, so they've shifted more east to go way further back. Go on. I have over 3 decades tried to set the South Asian Design, Arts and Technology Kendra as a space for creative collaborations, investing at cross-cultural currency, but land to build it has eluded us. Many designers from Zaha to Gehry, Rem Koolhaas have offered to do. Much of who I am, indeed who we all are, lies locked in the same house with separate rooms called Karachi, Dhaka, Kabul, Kathmandu, Thimphu, Rangoon, Colombo. Next. You do it, I'm not doing any more. The first time I set eyes on a Pakistani was at a cemetery as a tourist in Arlington, more than 10,000 miles away. And that was not because I was 17. Today, when I'm nearing 70, I feel we may have many more miles to cover. As a Punjabi, I walked across into West Punjab, Pakistan for the first time carrying a sarson. I uprooted a sapling from our side in Wagha and walked across. This is Faiz Ahmed Faiz's daughter, Salima Hashmi, a very eminent artist and curator, and we were trying to do something for Amritsar as a biennale. Riaz has done such a seminal work in bringing the biennales into a buzzword in this country that every city wants to have its biennale, Amritsar included. So, but I hope this will not be just Amritsar. It will be Lahore and Amritsar, although it will never happen together. So you could see it up to Wagah and go back. Lahore will celebrate at the same time as we will. I don't know where it's going now. So I'm really talking here, I'm not going to go into this, but I talk about what the beleaguered neighborhood is about. Go on. And what composite cultures are about all our gods, goddesses, and how this, the mind-boggling, unique ethnological zoo, how plurality and defying the melting pot syndrome of monoculture is our most enduring, endearing, and perhaps uniting ecology. Even European languages refer to our civilizational ethos as plural, des and. Des and. So far, and I emphasize so far, we have been open to new ideas, not fearful of wily negotiations, never bereft of argumentative dialogues. If we lose the skill to talk to each other, our subcontinent would erupt, making the bloody conflicts of other balkanized part of the world look like a kindergarten party. Go on. Imagine what would happen in Calicut, where there's a greater population of Muslims. So even if today, there are unprecedented forces, humongously powerful, trying to homogenize us within each political border, even if there are fears fanning hatred between communities, Sesia alone can change for the better, survive and democratically prosper if it remains varied and diverse. If I speak as a designer and cultural activist, I cannot overemphasize the need for creativity in our beleaguered region. Creativity that fosters variety, celebrates all this, and makes us fearless of the so-called other. Even as we seek to define who we are, remember with 40% of the world's poor, we are the most militarized region in the world, and fear keeps it that way. Firmly believe what culture can do, politics can't. What diplomat and politicians only talk about, artists can act upon. Can someone tell me who these two in the picture are? Anyone? Anyone in the audience that can tell me who these are? Lata Mangeshkar. And who's the other? Noor Jahan Begum. They used to only meet in Macy's to buy lipsticks because they couldn't come across. So I truly believe that culture can do what, as I said, no, back again. No, this is not a video. You can change, cut that. Just put this. So we invented a new slogan for Sesia. And I'd like you to join me because this is about to end my presentation. But showing the hand. Diversity. Please. Never mind, do it. Diversity. Connectivity. Empowerment. Peace. Okay, now next. And of course, if we have to take on China, we have no other option. I'm not going to the details here. So we have to first map and classify creative and cultural industries. 2, prioritize art, especially a pedagogic program of traditional knowledge systems with mainstream curricula. Go on. Honor and empower the protagonist, professional or otherwise. Respect guidelines and give teeth to them. Are you aware that 2.5% of all building budget should go towards art and craft? How many people are aware of this guideline here? They're architects. 1, 2 maybe. But 2.5% is more than all the budget of the Department of Culture. So the real culprits is us. We've never been able to exercise our teeth, our power to be able to say, bring this into the mainstream. Go on. And then respect, prevent the shrinking of the creative spaces in the urban sprawl. Ignorance has to stop. The sense of the sacred must prevail. If you go I mean, I went to see TiE when I came to Calicut 30 years ago with Peter Brook, and we were looking around and there was silence and there was magic. Today when you go, everybody is doing everything for selfies and for tourism. Not bad by itself, but let that not shrink the space that creates what you really are trying to express. So instant gratification, pehchan, emotional intelligence will overtake artificial. Machines made will serve its purpose and no more, as we saw clearly here today. Bespoke will reign supreme. The future will belong to a carbon-friendly handmade. Go on. Future societies are all going to be knowledge-driven ones, creating original content. Imitation will only foster mediocrity. Edgy is king. Are we being trained to share the quintessential essence of being alive? Rasa. Who will evoke an authentic experience of the senses? Anubhuti. When the eyes breathe, when the dust that settles on the mirror of our heart clears, when the spirit soars, color is felt and taste hums into the air, where the mind soars, reaching far out, but more within, deep within. So looking within means understanding the dilemma of the Kasturi Mrig. Searching, Kasturi Mrig is the musk deer, searching frantically from forest to forest for a fragrance that is in effect lying within its own womb. Kasturi kundali base, mrig dhunde banmahi. So my friends, we sit thirsty beside the river. We sit hungry under a tree laden with fruit. Next. We clench potent seeds in a fist, scared of dropping them till we find new ones. No seed is shy of germination, nor does any fruit remain on the tree when ripe. And when it falls, it does not rot if the ground is fertile. Thank you.